This show contains profanity, advice you should never follow, humor that you might not enjoy. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. Do not try this at home.
Greetings, Yellow Blazers, Blue Blazers, Bill Bryson lovers, Bill Bryson haters, National Parkers,
After Darkers,
Bob Barkers. Welcome to the Pox Puss Podcast, a proud member of the Appalachian Trails family. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting to my right,
Puss in Boots.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about national parks and current events.
Potent potables.
So, part of the whatever 2-year process it seems to have been to get my mom out of her house, going through a lot of family photos, and our family was real big on putting together albums of like family trips and things like that. And so there's one, and I remember this. I remember going on a drive of Skyline Drive in the Shenandoahs. Mm-hmm. Because annually, living in North Carolina, we would have a family member die in Ohio pretty much every year.
Sure.
And so we would make that
Doesn't
trek.
Everybody?
Yeah, and it was always at spring break, summer break, fall. Like, it was always perfectly timed.
And your parents were always like, oh, good. We won't miss any school.
Oh, my mom. Because my dad's like, I got to stay here and work. Your family. Hey, sorry. You know. And so it was my mom and my grandma and I going on all these trips. Usually listening to the Tales of Lake Wobegon. Not the entire Lake Wobegon radio broadcast, just the Garrison Keillor stories.
Yeah.
That's a big joke for anybody who's listened to it before.
Basically is torture for children. Like,
I definitely got brainwashed though. Like, because I enjoyed those stories from back in the day, and actually had like, it's no point in telling that story. It's a long ass boring story, but anyway. So going on those trips, and usually my mom would try to make it interesting to a 8-year-old to a 12-year-old.
It's nice of her. My parents were not as kind, but anyway.
And I think partly it was because she needed some variety and that kind of thing, and so so either going up or usually coming back down after a funeral, we would go do whatever through some place. And it was always West Virginia, whatever. So I remember driving through Shenandoah, and then I remember pulling over at one of the waysides or one of the pull-offs, and I saw a deer.
Oh, shit.
I was like, oh, wow, a deer. Now, I grew up in the fucking middle of the woods, and I'd seen deer a million times, but it was like...
But this was a different deer.
This is a different deer. And I had a camera, and I probably took 23 out of 24 photos on a roll of film of a fucking deer in the Shenandoah. And
each time getting one step closer to it.
Oh, yeah. Each time.
It's the same fucking picture.
Almost reaching out to pet it. Yeah, exactly. It like never went away. It just was like, yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, probably 10 to 14 years later in my life, I was almost where I had my breakdown was in the Shenandoahs. Is where the Virginia Blues hit me, was right there in the middle of a 20-mile day. And I yelled, I believe it was "fuck you" at a deer. Mm-hmm. And the deer just, of course, like blinked an eye, one ear waggled.
Chewed some cud.
Yeah, it wagged its tail and then just kept chewing on whatever it was doing, and it didn't give a fuck what I did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so National Park memories is the... I just drove through a national park this summer. Went to Yosemite.
Yosemite. Yeah.
Samuel Yosemite.
Yeah. We all know my favorite national park story. Is
that Yellowstone?
Yeah.
The get back in the car?
Yeah. Crying to myself in the rental van as my brother and my parents walked too close to a bison to get pictures.
But that's a thing this year. Like, legit thing.
It's a thing every year. And I've been right for the last 20 years about that shit. Wise beyond my years.
The old honey on the hands, reach out for the bear.
Weeping to myself because what was I going to do when I was going to watch
How old were you?
I was 9.
9.
I was going to watch my family get trampled by bison.
Right.
And they had the keys. Like, how was I even going to... This was before cell phones. Like, what was I going to do?
Yeah.
I could freeze to death in that car. It was snowing. It was the middle of July, and it was snowing.
Jesus.
And my dad had the keys. And I was like, I can't even... I mean, and it might as well have been, like, not bison, but, like, you know, I could have been in the movie fucking, like, Tremors, because I wasn't going to be able to step foot outside of that vehicle to flag anyone down, because I was positive that the second I stepped foot out of the vehicle, I would be attacked by a grizzly bear.
Right.
Or, you know, the bison circling the vehicle.
It might as well have been zombies at that point.
I mean, I was like, pretty sure this is how I was going to watch. I always knew I was going to watch my family get murdered. I just didn't know it was going to be by the wilds of national parks.
That one always gets me. So we don't have headphones right now.
We do not.
We do not. And that's because now that we're entering our 5th year of doing this.
Wow.
We've been using the same headphones for that entire time. So I wanted to treat us to a new pair of headphones.
Oh, man. Treat yourself.
Because the foam on our old ones was coming off when I would wear them around the house. And so, like, my wife would be like, what's that white... Like, it literally looked like I had dandruff because the white stuff from our headphones was coming off. So, yeah, so...
Well, the guy on the packaging for these new headphones looks like he's having a really good time.
Oh, he is. It's because they have powerful bass.
Yeah, or Clafton Royal Boss.
Okay, so now we're going to use them.
God damn it. Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. This is both of us going, son of a bitch.
Okay, pop quiz hotshot.
Oh boy.
Who signed into law the creation of the national park system?
Big T Roosevelt?
That's exactly what I thought too.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. It was Wilson. Wilson signed it into law in 1916, but many people still believe Teddy Roosevelt is the granddaddy of the park system. But see, here's the deal. He signed the Antiquities Act on June 8th, 1906, 110 years ago. So basically what that did was, that was the one that kind of gave the right to a president to declare a place as a national monument. So that's what kind of started the thing. But I went to school for Parks and Rec, and I remember taking a whole class on the park system, and I just didn't feel like looking it up. But there are stories of, like, a lot of it had to deal with cattle and grazing and stuff like that, and overhunting and that kind of thing as well. And so there's stories of, like, Roosevelt sending the U.S. Army out to, like, guard Yellowstone and to guard, like, all these different places. And it was controversial because he was sending the military out to protect against Americans going on public property. So it was kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let's see. This is straight out of Wikipedia. The Antiquities Act has been used over 100 times since its passage. Originally concerned about protecting mostly prehistoric Indian ruins and artifacts collectively termed antiquities on federal lands in the West, such as Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Removal of artifacts from these lands by private collectors or quote-unquote pot hunters, in the language of the time, had become a serious problem by the end of the 19th century. And I even have a personal experience with meeting a guy who had gone to Chaco Canyon and had found a piece of pottery and drilled a hole in it and then created a necklace out of it. And it was just like, you did what? And he just, like, without blinking an eye, and like, and I just remember whoever the person I was with just laid into him, like, the whole fucking point is to not take anything. And it was just like, just went crazy on him. And I was just standing there like, yep. Like, it was just like, just total disbelief. Like, I just could not believe. And that's like, you and I have talked about it so many times before, just like, not insulting people, but just remember just how insignificant you are to the rest of the fucking world.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a Chaco Canyon pottery necklace. It's like, oh, just leave it there.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Why are people so dumb?
My note here to say that whole part about protecting the parks.
Right.
He didn't fuck around. He sent soldiers out to protect ... some park. That was my big note for that last paragraph.
Oh, I thought that was like a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
Isn't it great, like, whenever you see one of those quotes, it's, like, attributed to Marilyn Monroe, and then you look at it, and you're just like, no. Like, one of my favorite things to do on the internet is to, like, that one about the wolves. Have you seen that one? The video, the picture of the wolves, and like in the front there's three wolves, and like the oldest are walking out front. Right. And it's all bullshit because they would have left those motherfuckers behind in reality. Yep. And so like, yeah, it's one of my, like, once a month, somebody that I know, somebody on Facebook will be like, this is the way a society should be. And it's like, here's science, motherfucker.
I don't know why. It reminds me of the time when I was like 14 and we went to the beach and we went up to Corolla to see the wild ponies. Mm-hmm. It was me, my mom, my dad, my brother, my grandma, and grandpa. And and I mean, if you've ever seen any of the wild horses at the beach, they're inbred and bloated from drinking salt, like from eating fucking salt covered grass their whole life. Like, they look awful. They're all like pigeon toed, and they've got these big swollen salty bellies that hang from like a rib cage that's like so pronounced. Like, they're just awful looking.
Right.
They're not the picture of, like, you know, a wild,
out
you know,
of the plains.
Yeah. These are wild horses descending from, you know, hundreds, and they've been thriving here. Like, they're not thriving. Like, they look fucking terrible. They're making it.
Yeah.
But so there's one horse, and it's, you know, this like black horse that's, you know, covered in like dried salt, and, you know, it's got its fucking dreadlocks, and it just looks terrible, and it's standing like knee deep in water in the ocean.
Right.
And my grandfather, who is pretty sure he's the authority on everything,
right,
just looks at this horse, and of course we're like driving in, you know, the like a Ford Explorer, like on the beach, and my dad's like pretty excited because he's driving a car on the beach.
Yeah.
And my grandfather's just like watching this black horse, and he says, I believe he's separated himself from the herd and he's throwing himself out to sea. He looks older than the rest of them. I think he knows that he's gonna die. And like, he's just talking about like this horse is gonna fucking drown itself and, like, you know, give itself its own Viking fucking burial to the sea. And I'm like 14 years old going, God damn it, my grandfather is full of shit. Like,
hey, we haven't had any gas.
Yeah.
Have you had a gas problem down here? No.
Oh, sometimes. I mean, like.
Yeah. I just realized, asking the two of us if we had gas problems.
Sometimes.
Has there been a gasoline shortage in the Triangle area?
Well, apparently there's enough of a gasoline shortage that the construction crew that was supposed to be in my house all week couldn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
But my husband and I didn't have any trouble putting gas in our car. So,
Well, up in western North Carolina, I was packed up last Saturday.
Yeah, we were all set.
All set. I was packed up and was leaving pretty early. And I stopped into the gas station. It's about 1.5 miles from my house. And the lady who usually just tells you the total and asks you debit or credit and doesn't really say much of anything to you afterwards. I went in, filled up, no problem. And then I was like, I need some caffeine. So I went inside to get a drink and went up to the counter and she's like, are you filling up? And I was just like, whoa, geez. Yeah, I just did. She's like, well, you better. I was like, well, yeah, I did. And she was like, well, because we don't know when we're getting any more gas, and I was like, oh, why? And she was like, you ain't heard on the news? I was like, no. And it was like the one day where like I just came home. I had been sick for like 2 weeks with a head cold and a cough and like all this stuff. And I was just like, I just came home that day and knew I just had to get up early the next day. So I got my stuff ready, got the car packed, and just woke up on Saturday morning. Didn't pay attention to shit.
Right.
And so this lady is just like putting the fear of God into me that we are not going to have any more gas.
She's like, coming.
We're going to run out today and we don't know when we're getting any more. And I was like, really? And so I got out to the parking lot, called my wife, and I was like, could you look up? I'm going to look this up too, but could you look it up online or maybe turn on the news or something?
Google gas shortage.
Yeah. And so she did. And then I called her back and I was like, oh, it's a real thing. I just thought maybe it was just happening here and just, had no idea about the pipeline, any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I was like, huh. So if we're not going to have any here, and then my wife sent me a message saying like, oh, they're standing in line in Charlotte to get gas. And I was like, okay. So so basically just called it off then just because it was like I had no idea. And then it wound up like I probably would have been fine, but just did not know at that point in time. So it was like, fuck it. And so then anyway, this entire week, there's 2 gas stations next to one another, a little down the road from me. And when I drive into work...
I love both of those gas stations.
Yeah. And one of them would never sell alcohol as long as you... And one of them's like, we've got nothing but alcohol and Zoom baits. So, yeah, so... And so...
I can never remember which one is which, so I always go to the one that doesn't sell alcohol first.
Yeah. And oh, yeah.
Yeah. You just and then I, back out, sorry, I don't need anything here. Like, it's very obvious that...
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you guys just have a whole lot of cheese and rocking chairs for guys to use to scratch off their scratch-offs. And so, I'm not even kidding you. Like,
no, I know.
Anytime I go in there, there is this one old guy who is just using a scratch-off. And all I can think of is, like, you must have been kicked out of the Cherokee Casino. That's all I can think of. That's the only reason you're doing this. So
got to get your fix somehow.
But so when I drive into work, one gas station will be open, and maybe one has 8 pumps, the other one has 6 pumps. They never open more than half of the pumps. They only have 87 in diesel. And on my way back through, the other gas station will be the one that has gas, and the one on my way in will be out. And that's been that way the entire week. And you can just tell because they put the bags on the handles, and it's just like, oh, that one doesn't have it. Oh, that one has it. And it just goes back and forth. So, and on my way down yesterday, I stopped in Hickory, North Carolina. They only had 87. And then I also stopped in Siler City, North Carolina, close to Climax, North Carolina. They too only had 87. So, fuck yo turbo, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Oh, this was something that this was just too funny for me because we talk about trail names and just how common they are and how often you hear the same one. I would be willing to bet every year there's a thru-hiker named Duct Tape.
Yeah.
When you think some guy somewhere in North Carolina fixed something with duct tape that nobody else, or he duct taped his heels, or, did something somebody named duct tape.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of Beyond Scared Straight? Or do you remember Scared Straight? And then there was Beyond Scared Straight. Is Beyond Scared Straight I think it's on A&E or HBO or something like that. So this is a story about a man named Duct Tape.
I think Duct Tape playing. Back up. Yeah. Back up. That's how they live. That's how we living in here. That's how you gonna live too. He duct tape. He mine. Duct tape. You see this? Duct tape. See them sandwiches over there they saving? See the toilet right there? He was using the bathroom while you eating. Same time. You want to live his life? Duct tape!
Jeez.
So I think everybody out there should at least Google Duct Tape Beyond Scared Straight. The best part about that is when he's standing next to the toilet and he's like, and the officer's like, you see that? He's going to be right there where you're using the bathroom. He's like, same time. And it made me think of those privies out there that have side by side or back to back, and it's like same time. But before you decide to go by the trail name Duct Tape, just Duct Tape. Duct Tape's all worked up today, and he looks out the window and he's like, Duct Tape real.
Jesus. So since my husband was gone this weekend, I exploded the house. And yesterday, which was Saturday, I got up early, drank a coffee, took a Ritalin, and
got down to it.
And then when I finally was I've done enough for today, tuck in for the night. So the plan was to get up early today, Sunday, and get back to it. Same thing. I never really know how Ritalin is going to affect me. And I have to be kind of careful about, it'll just make me hyper-focus on something.
Right.
And when that kicks in, if I'm not, focused on the right thing...
Yep.
There's no coming back from that.
Right.
And, instead of, being focused on cleaning, instead I was I'm the smartest, funniest person around. I'm going to update every social media all the time. That's what I'm doing right now. And as I'm posting things, I'm just I don't think this is funny. There's a tiny voice in the back of my head, stop doing it. It's like when you drink too much and you think that you haven't, but there's a voice in the back of your head that's I
don't know about this one.
You should stop doing what you're doing because it's not as funny as you think it is. I just kept posting and posting, and not just I posted a whole bunch on Twitter.
Right.
And then I posted on my personal Facebook, and then I was on my personal Instagram, and then I'm maybe I should try and figure out Snapchat because I have that app. I should do this. This would be fun. This would be great. Blah. And it's and then suddenly I was I should really make a place for us to at least sit and record a podcast. So you're welcome that there's a place for you to sit. I'm snuggled up with a mountain of clean laundry.
It's clean laundry, though.
It's clean. It's clean for the most part. The dog, dug all through it and, just did the, this is warm, clean laundry. I'm going to lay in it. I'm going to get inside of it.
Back in my, the days when I had a prescription for Adderall, I would, when you're not focused on the right thing, you can wind up going through your iTunes library.
Yep.
And going, oh, this one's under Dylan, Bob. I need to make this Bob Dylan to fit in with the other Bob Dylans.
Right.
And then before you realize it, you're a child of the Napster age and you have 10,000 songs.
And it's 8.5 hours later. And you've developed a bed sore because you haven't moved in that 8.5 hours. Like, I mean, there have definitely been times where I'm like, I'm going to clean out the garage, and where are you when the drugs kick in? Next to the guitar you haven't played in 3 years, and, I think that I also, like, it's kind of fun, but I also get, like, an inflated sense of self. It's like...
Oh, yeah.
It's the bit of myself that's normally like, I don't have it in me to get this shit done.
Yeah.
Like, suddenly, like... there's like a little superhero that's like, stand aside, you. We can do all the things. And instead, my fingertips are bleeding as I'm playing the guitar for hours. And I'm like, this sounds amazing.
Did you ever have...
I'm going to be the next big thing.
Did you ever have friends come to you and go, hey, man, are you doing cocaine? And it was like, no, I'm not. And they're like, only asking because you're exhibiting the exact same behaviors of people who do cocaine.
Yeah.
And it was like, never done it in my life.
Nope.
And it's like, maybe we need to knock this down to 5 milligrams.
Yeah.
Because, there is that point where you're like,
take the context clues of my life right now.
oh, I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
I haven't been wrong in about a year.
Yep.
I have a friend who is... ever since he was 19, maybe 20, he's been in the Special Forces. And so he's like almost 20 years now. And so he, when he was going through his training in Special Forces, they were allowed to leave, like once they'd reached a certain point in their training, they were allowed to leave like one night for like 4 to 8. Mm-hmm. And so this one guy, not my friend, it was his roommate, from 4 to 8, the dude went out and found cocaine and came back and made all kinds of racket, rummaging through his, like, I guess he got hungry, or he decided at that point in time he was going to organize his Foot Locker, and he was going crazy. And then he put on like half of their like dress uniform, and including the hat, the cap, and all that kind of stuff. But he was standing in front of the mirror going, can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine? It's impossible. Can you imagine? And he just kept saying, can you imagine? I mean, could you imagine? Into the mirror until finally, boom, the drill instructors or whatever bust through the door, and they're like, what the fuck? And and the guy was not there the next day.
Damn.
But yeah.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine just adjusting the hat? Like, can you imagine? I mean, and I think there was something else like, it's inconceivable. Can you imagine? It's inconceivable. Can you imagine? Like, you imagine getting that far in training and then just blowing it all on coke.
It's inconceivable.
Did you see the picture that the ATC put up of the guy hiking with a cat?
No.
It was a picture from like 1983.
Oh, I've seen that guy. Yeah.
And the guy has a cat.
Like an orange cat?
Well, it was a black and white photo that I saw, but it was like, but it's like hiking on top of his pack. Yeah. I thought I was like, that's interesting.
I feel like that guy had a story like the cat, he and the cat like canoed for a really long time.
Oh, really?
And then like he found that cat as a kitten, and then like they did all these like epic adventures together.
Huh. I didn't hear about that.
Well,
I trust you.
I mean, I might be making that up. You never know. Sometimes I have a hard time.
I think they put up
like
because
separating my dreams from reality. So I might have that might have just been like my Toonces, the hiking cat dream that I reject your reality.
You tired yourself out on that one, didn't you?
I reject your reality and replace it with my own.
So, did you hear? Okay, so
everything in my life is so ridiculous right now that like I just don't even know. I don't even know what's real anymore.
Yeah,
you gotta laugh about it, 'cause otherwise you'll cry about it.
I know exactly what you mean. And we don't need to go into it on the show, but there are just reasons why it's taken us a little while. Can we just say that and just let everybody know to send their thoughts and prayers?
Yeah.
To Puss in Boots.
If you're the type that sends good vibes, please send them.
I saw today Cheech Marin on Twitter or Facebook, whatever he does. He posted a picture of the Care Bears. And you remember, like, the Care Bears, they would stand back and, like, whatever their symbol was would fly off.
They'd beam it out of their tummy.
And it was a meme that says, this is what I think of every time I hear someone says they're sending thoughts and prayers, and it's the tummies all lit up.
What was that called? The Care Bear stare or something?
Oh, yeah, no, I think I
Care
could.
Bear share?
Yeah.
I can't remember now.
I think in the 80s, as a boy, I wasn't allowed to like the Care Bears as much as I wanted to. So I didn't really keep up with them,
That's fine.
In the South. And
what was it?
Racism.
The Care Bear stare came up.
HB2. You just gave me the Care Bear stare when I said HB2. Hey.
Oh, no, this is Urban Dictionary. The Care Bear stare. Wait, hang on. Oh, fuck you. God damn it, motherfucker. So that must be what the Care Bear stare was when they would go, Care Bear stare, wee, and like...
Well, I had something to say then, but have you heard of bronies?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was like, well, then there's no point. Bronies, for those people that don't know, are gentlemen who like My Little Pony.
Yeah.
And it's for real.
Yeah, they're
for reals, though.
They're into it.
So, speaking of being into it, this week, let's just say we know of one fastest known time that was set.
Yeah.
There might have been others. It's still too early to tell. But I would just suggest that when you just look up fastest known times in Appalachian Trials, click on that article. And we'll talk about that some other time, maybe. But we do know that officially, which is unofficially, since the ATC doesn't keep records of fastest known times, Karl Metzger finished his hike in 45 days, 22 hours, and 38 minutes, and that was supported. Apparently, he kind of gained notoriety because he just ate junk food. He just ate pizza and beer, and just that's how he fueled himself. I'm sure there's other things that he did. His
body is a temple.
Yeah, exactly. But it just goes to show, I think, some have had like personal chefs out there doing their thing and in attempts, and but he broke Scott Jurick's record set last year, and Jurick got injured pretty early on. But Meltzer did it the way that I've always said that it should be done, is from north to south. Get rid of the tough shit early on, But anyway, so this one article came up, and it was actually called liveformusic.com. And it says, hiker uses Grateful Dead and Fish playlist to break Appalachian Trail speed record.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and so he said there was a lot of Grateful Dead, but not the studio stuff, the stuff where they really get jamming for a long time. He said, I had some Strange Folk, a little Fish. I like that jam stuff. All right, so you posted something today on the internet.
Ruh-roh.
And I had, maybe it was in one of your Furies.
I'm sure it was.
Bushcraft. Go.
I can't even talk about, I mean, I'm not trying to shit on this. My husband comes from a military family.
Right.
And his father is very proud of the fact that apparently when he was overseas, they did some kind of survival training and they dropped you in the middle of the jungle and then they picked you up later and like days later and it was just like, you know, sink or swim, bitch, like make this happen. And my father-in-law was the only person thus far to have gained weight like during that time. Like they picked him up and he was like fat and happy, like he was just like, that was fun, let's do it again.
Wow.
And so my husband has since I've known him, he's always been like, I just want to like know how to start a fire with sticks, and like, which is
he has
totally cool. But he'll like watch a YouTube video and then like go camping and try and start a fire with sticks, like not having like proper training. Like he watched the YouTube video, so he thinks he's going to be able to make it happen. And, you know, I'm trying to explain to him, like, no, you need certain kinds of wood and this kind of thing. And then, you know, this, that, and the other. And it's something that he and I kind of butt heads on just because, I mean, it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Dual Survival, where it's like the military survival guy and then the hippie survival guy. And they've got like totally conflicting, like, ways of surviving, but they have to like survive in some weird landscape together. And you know, like I tend towards the hippie survival stuff and my husband definitely towards the military survival stuff. And so, you know, my husband and I were talking about doing, well, he was saying that he wanted to, because it drives me nuts when he, I'm going to air quote this, learns survival skills on YouTube. And I'm like, and I have always kind of encouraged him, like, take a fucking class. Like, take a class in it and learn it. Like, from somebody who can show you firsthand, like, no, you need to hold it this way, or you need to do this way. You know, use this kind of wood, use this kind of rock, use this kind of, you know, whatever. And, you know, if you want to learn how to do this shit, like, learn how to do it from somebody who can really show you. And then, like, push comes to shove, and eventually we were like, you know, if we can find a good class, like a weekend course, let's do it together. So, you know, for my husband, like, you know, and our survivalist personalities comes out just in what we are Googling to find this class, because he's looking for, you know, like, preppers kind of style survival classes. Like, it's like, and I'm looking for, what I Google is bushcraft, because in my mind it's like, you know, I want to know
how to set up a shelter.
Right. So I'll be curious, like, eventually I'm sure that I'll look up and I'll find a couple of weekend courses, and so will he. And it's, you know, going to be hilarious when we send the links to each other to check out, because, you know, his are going to be taught by, you know,
people you see on Prepper TV.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to talk poorly about our military personnel, but, like, I know that, well, after he listens to this episode, my husband will be like, that's not what I'm doing at all. But
does he listen?
He does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And just only reason I asked that is because I didn't think he did. My wife doesn't listen to anything because she doesn't want to hear me talk any fucking more than I already do.
Yeah.
But last night at dinner, my mom and I went out to dinner, and she said, "So did I tell you that I listened to the first ever podcast of you?" And I was like, "Oh, our first one?" I was like, "Because it's completely different than that." Like, yeah, our first one. And she goes, "No, it was the one," and it was our last one where we talked about like that you got sick.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so I was just like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Yeah." And
sorry, Pox's mom.
I kept waiting for like, okay, well, here comes something. But so I don't have an iPhone, but I guess if you start downloading podcasts, then it sends you suggestions maybe to your email or something. She's probably clicked on like,
sure,
let me know about other things and
right,
not known it. And so every morning she has 5 more podcast suggestions come to her. She's like, I don't want to listen to those. I just wanted to listen to one of yours because I never heard it before. And so I was supposed to correct that this morning. I just remembered that when you said that, I was like, I was supposed to correct that on her phone and just like probably unclick whatever.
Right.
And I just realized I did not do that.
Yeah. No.
And I'm not going back to go and do it. So every day, 5 different podcasts. That must be iOS 10.
I don't know what that is because I don't get that, but.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably you're a child of the internet. You knew I don't need to have any more notifications.
Right.
Thank you.
Turn off all notifications always.
Yeah. But back to preppers.
Yeah. So, like I would love to be taught survival skills by somebody that like hasn't worn shoes in 5 years.
Right.
And my husband wants to
So you're kind of in the and he's been talked about before on here by Blimey, the Eustace Conway style of like out there near Boone.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a fan of Eustace, but
right, but like something
along those
you're
lines.
You're more that way, and,
right?
And your husband's probably more like we're going to build bunkers.
My husband's a little more like, well, I think my husband probably thinks that Bear Grylls is a pretty cool dude.
Well,
so
he's got those bracelets.
He does have those bracelets. So just another fun difference.
Is your shirt the phases of the moon?
Yeah.
I just now noticed it. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't want you to think I was like, look.
Check out those moons.
That's the problem with women who wear shirts that are interesting is you have to look at them.
Yeah, I don't care.
And then you're an asshole.
Yeah, so...
Well, I see, I'm waiting for a text back from a friend of mine. Actually, my friend who is the roommate of... Can you imagine? He sent his dad to one. There's one in Virginia. And I keep wanting to say Dan Brown, but I think that's the guy that keeps that like wrote the Da Vinci Code, right?
I don't
know. Back to when you were talking about horses. Mm-hmm. I used to work on a very large ranch out west. Mm-hmm. And, it was a working cattle ranch. Dealt a lot with bison and cattle. And, dealt a lot with, and had actual real cowboys that worked there. I was not one of those. And, but when you would be out hiking, you would just come across a just completely devoured horse carcass occasionally. Because, like, if a horse got out in this...
For a second there, I thought you were talking about on the AT, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I never saw a horse carcass.
New Mexico.
Yeah, no.
Thousands of acres.
Gotcha.
And,
with you now.
Yeah. But you would just, like, be hiking along, and you're just like, oh, that's a horse skull. And, but they would still have, like, a little bit of fur on it, and, but you're just like, oh, this thing was... either died of exposure or was killed by mountain lions. And you're just like, and like, I'm one very memorable hike where I was like, I just got to get out and, and I kind of let some people know where I was going, but didn't really give like a specific like plan. And I got to the top of this mountain and it was completely bald and we were also trying to find where a fire was coming from. And so I was like, well, I'll go out and check on this while I'm on my hike. I'll let you guys know. And it turned out that we were in northeastern New Mexico and it was coming from Arizona. So it wasn't anywhere near us. But I got to the top of this mountain. I could see the smoke. And I walked a little bit further over kind of the crest of it, and it was like, oh, that's a lot more dead horse than I've ever seen before. Not as old. I'm going to go ahead and hike back down.
And back away. Yeah.
And look over my shoulder constantly, and then so I can just watch the predator kill me. But yeah.
When I was in India, in the Himalayas, so like everybody used pack horses, which were little, like they were little. They would be ponies in America, but they were pack horses there. And there were also these huge birds that were basically vultures, but they called them, they were griffins. And I mean, these griffins were gigantic. Like,
right.
Like, I took a couple pictures of them, and like the ponies and the griffins weren't too terribly different in size. Like, it was...
Jesus.
They're huge. And I mean, like, they'd be circling above you. And, like, when a bird's circling above you, you're like, that's not that big. Yeah. But, like, you know, you're also surrounded by gigantic mountains that, like, throw your perspective off.
Right.
And every now and then, like, you'd be walking along. And, I mean, it's like, I was there during monsoon season. It was very wet. And there'd be, like, a big... like muddy like hole, and there'd be like a dead pack horse in the muddy hole, and you're like, well, that's the worst way to die ever. Like, that's awful. And there would just be, it was like the only place that you could get close to these griffins, but they would just be like around this mud hole, like trying to figure out how they were going to eat this horse.
Jesus.
It was, and you were just sort of like, this is not real life. Like,
yeah,
I've somehow been transported to a prehistoric time. Like, it was really creepy.
Yeah. In my listening to podcasts forever and ever, every day, all day, driving in the car, riding, work, doing whatever, a common theme amongst a lot of the ones that I've heard recently, and I don't think anything happened. It's just that it's just like I'm listening to podcasts with comedians around my age, maybe a little bit older. But do you remember growing up, like you would see on cartoons like Bugs Bunny, everything, quicksand?
Yeah.
And like,
I think I tweeted about that one time. Like, quicksand did not turn out to be anywhere near as big a problem as I thought it was going to be.
Maybe that's one of the things that helped prompt me to think that. Yeah, like you thought, like, and I've heard comedians. It's just like the same way that currently the Berenstein versus Berenstein Bears. Have you heard about that one?
No.
Which did you grow up reading?
Berenstein Bears.
Right, it's Berenstein Bears. Go back and look at it. It's not. It's Berenstain Bears. Like, it's not what you remember as a child. But so, like, it's completely different. And so there's that. And that's, like, but that's been one for a couple of years where it's, like, the Berenstein versus Berenstein. And so, but, like, yeah, because I'm the same way. I remember reading the Berenstein Bears.
Berenstein Bears.
Nope. Go back and look at how it's spelled. Nope. But so anyway, there's a few tropes like that are going around. But the one that I want to bring up, I haven't seen as many white flags in my life as I thought I would.
Oh, yeah.
That was always a big one, too, in the cartoons. Yeah. They would wave a lot of white flags.
The surrender flag,
yeah. Like, maybe that happened when I was a little kid playing war or something like that, but you definitely thought you'd see a lot more white flags.
Well, I remember reading about, in World War II, that, like, on Christmas Day one time, they both ran up, like, I think it was England and somebody else ran up white flags, and they played, like, soccer.
Yeah.
Or some shit. Like,
then there's that one about during World War I where there were so fucking many wolves killing people that were trying to fight in World War I that for like 2 or 3 days they paused and just fucking killed wolves together. And then we're like, okay, game on. And went back to killing each other. But, like, the wolves were... Yeah, exactly. Wolves. They had to just fucking kill wolves for a few days so they could get back to a fair fight.
This is what I'm talking about. Like...
Should we pause?
It's 2017. Like, how is this shit relevant?
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Dogs. As always, you can find us on AppalachianTrials.com. Scroll almost all the way to the bottom, and you'll find the Pox and Puss little page. Click on that and find all of our back episodes. You can find us at Pox and Puss on Instagram and on Twitter. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at @PussInBoots, or Instagram at PussInBootsAT. I haven't been on the Instagram a whole lot, but would, I think the more traffic I get there, the more I will be forced to utilize. So, do some shit. I do have a lot more followers than I expected, so perhaps that's why.
Look for us in all those places. Actually, hold on. There's another gift.
Another gift?
Yeah. So Buff sent us buffs and thanking us for using them at trail days. And so we just got buffs.
Cool.
Yeah. We got buffs. This is the first year we've actually received stuff.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's Smartwool socks, buffs, and Ultra sent us running shoes. So, yeah.
I'm loving those.
And I actually just on my own dime bought a pair of Ultra, a little bit more toned down shoes for like everyday wear.
Yeah.
And they are waiting at my post office box right now.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Something else we don't really talk about much anymore, but we still have it. It's our phone number.
Oh, yeah.
Call 828-394-4526. I think the last letters spell out glam.
Jams.
Jamma.
Jam.
But 828-394-4526 and leave us a voicemail. We're not picking up. Just leave a voicemail with some kind of crazy story or whatever. But 828-394-4526. Go ahead and put it in your phone. That way, if you're out hiking and something crazy happens and you get back to your car, you can just give us a call. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, I guess that noise from Scupper means the show's over. 3, 2, 1, dogs.
Bye, folks. God damn it, my grandfather is full of shit.